The tech for this podcast was produced by Truth Digital. Truth Digital is the sister company to Cochrane & Co. We work in the same office, we drink the same coffee. We do websites, marketing, paid ads, social media, SEO, and all of the other things that will get you new business quickly and efficiently without the bullshit. Check us out, truthdigital.co.uk, or check us out on socials. All handles are Truth Digital. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you here again very soon. Welcome, Paul, to the UK Flooring Podcast. First question, who are you and what's important to you?
That's a great question, Rob. Yeah, straight away, straight in under the bus. So, I'm Paul Naisbitt, and what's important to me is helping others.
And why is that important?
I think that I've found that vision, just the feeling I get from helping others is just makes life better for everyone. And just I found that when I really needed help, there was people there for me, and I think that's where I'd like to go and like to help out with other people as well.
No, I love that. I was trying to figure out, Paul, how long ago did we meet? I can't remember. It's been a long time, and as I said before the show, I didn't realise we'd end up in a podcast booth in Darlington. But yeah, when do you think we first met?
Crazy. Do you know what? I'm going to say it's about 10 years ago.
It's got to be at least that.
Yeah, it's got to be about 10 years ago. And then in 2018, I think was when we kind of started connecting more as kind of friends, if you want to put it like that. So certainly after the first 2 years. But yeah, I think it's about 10 years ago.
And you've had different businesses over the years and different things like that.
Yes.
Have you always been like self-employed?
Pretty much. I left school and I went straight into the army. So
right.
I went in at 16 for just under 6 years.
Okay.
And then I left the army because I was moonlighting and thought the grass was greener on the other side. Started getting involved with cars at that point. Ended up living down south for a bit and found a way of moving back up north. And so, yeah, pretty much a varied path of sales and supplies to the public, yeah.
Okay. And now what does work look like on a Tuesday afternoon when you're not doing a podcast?
It's a crazy one now. So with my story, which is available on other podcasts, so we'll not go into it on this.
Give us a little bit, Paul. Give us a little bit. Let's stage it out a bit. You know, we don't just let anyone on this show. We want to know a little bit.
So I found myself Googling the behaviour of my ex-wife. And right. I think once you start Googling the behaviour and what's out of character, there's some serious problems going on. Nothing I was doing was right. And I ended up basically finding out that I was in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Which I was trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. And I was under the support of a domestic abuse organisation, etc. I was taken under the care of those because I am autistic. And the way that I think and my problem-solving attributes just weren't working. And ultimately I was my mental health was going downhill, and I ended up kind of ending the relationship Christmas 2019, which was a mad one because if I remember rightly, just quickly on that point, you had a make or break in the February, and I wrote that down as well. February the 29th, I think we went to Via Ferrata, and we were, at that point, although I was probably, I probably looked all right, inside I was dead. Yeah, I was completely, didn't know where my life was going to go. And what I've decided to do then is make it my purpose to help other survivors, but also help other people going through divorce, because although the family court system is a minefield, everything is when you don't understand it.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've gone and done, I'm qualified as a as a breakup and divorce coach, and I'm also now a qualified McKenzie friend, which is basically somebody who can support somebody through court and through a divorce process without being legally trained.
Right. Okay. And I think that's really, and people will be like, so why are you on the UK Flooring podcast? Well,
Yeah.
I think we're all people, we're all human, and most of us have partners or supporters or whatever. So, and also we have, to grow and scale a business, you need staff, you need people, and people go through these things. So I think it's a really, we've in the past have touched on alcohol, food, performance, and you can have the best flooring business in the world, but when you get back through that door at home, which is it your safe place? Probably. I've always kind of thought of myself as, I'm not going to call it a home and pigeon, that sounds a bit crap, but when I get off the plane from holiday, or when I come through my front door, there is definitely a feeling of comfort, I think. And that's how, if someone had to ask me that, I think that should be a definite, it shouldn't be a place of conflict. And I mean, maybe I'm different, but maybe I'm, if it was a place of conflict, I'd run for the hills quicker than you could say abracadabra. So I'd be gone, like within minutes, not even days, I'd be gone. That's just me. So from your experience, Paul, for even employed, what are the first signs people to look for, or what do you think you can give back to the flooring community on this podcast?
Yeah, certainly. So what I did was I looked up some figures because I wasn't aware of the actual figures and how it affects businesses. Doesn't matter which business that you're in, it's going to affect it. So ultimately, divorce, separation costs UK businesses around 48 to 54 billion pounds a year.
Yeah.
And that is pretty much in lost productivity, absenteeism, not being present, the usual things that we look for in mindset. Ultimately, when you're going through separation or divorce, it's even worse, obviously, if there's children involved.
Yeah.
You can't dictate when the courts are going to set the dates, or you can't dictate when mediation needs to take place. So ultimately, it's not just that time around the mediation appointment or the court date. You've got to prepare for that. You've got to have, all your ducks in a row for that. And ultimately, something needs to give.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing that comes into it is within the first year, I researched this a little bit more as well. Within the first year, the productivity of a person goes down around 40%. So a divorce is actually the second most traumatic experience, other than losing a loved one or a family member or something like that.
Yeah.
So part of the coaching that we do is basically educating people on the grief process and how it's not linear, and you can dip into different states of depression and mental health issues. I think where, going back to your original question, is what are the signs? I think it's when somebody starts acting out of character. And I think the old school method of kind of like pull your socks up, like kind of get your shit together type thing, that I think them old kind of the old school mentality doesn't work, and it's not productive anymore in a modern day environment and in a modern day business.
No.
And I think there needs to be a more compassionate approach, potentially a more flexible approach. Ultimately, though, I'm not saying that you should let these people get away without work, and that's not the issue. I think it's a case of, coming to a solution that works best for both parties, where they have a support system around them, whether it's a breakup and divorce coach like myself, a McKenzie friend, or whether they have a legal team. What's the costs involved? Because ultimately, if we can understand what the process is going to be and what they're going to end up having to do, then it's going to make it a whole lot easier, and it's going to make them feel a lot more supported and comfortable at work.
And increase that productivity.
Yeah, and just try and alleviate some of that deficit.
I think it's a really good subject because there's so many things that, people get in their own way, people have cash flow issues, make financial decisions, but a lot of people break up with loved ones.
Yes.
And it makes sense, being the second most, obviously death is catastrophic. But if you're used to this family environment and you a lot of people, I mean, I don't know if it should be 50-50, but your work life and your home life, could it be classed as 50-50 depending on what hours you work?
Yeah.
Well, in theory it could be, because you're either at work during the day and at night. And then children, once you bring children into the mix and things like that, they're permanent, they're not going anywhere. So you've got to transition through this, explaining it to the kids of why mum or dad's not there. And then if you're out on the tools, you're running a flooring shop, you've got other people around you, you're definitely going to act differently if you've got all this going on. Some people might be able to cover it up really well. Some people won't be able to cover it up and end up in a puddle on the floor. But
and ultimately, especially with the flooring industry, there's a practical side to that as well. And if your mind isn't on the job, you've got comebacks, or do you need to put other systems in place where that person's a little bit more supported, his work's either checked, or you've got SOPs in place which ultimately check his work and make sure that it's not bringing the company into in any problems.
if mine's not on it, it's not on it. Yeah.
And just one other thing, it's quite interesting that a couple of days ago, and I think it does need to be pushed through the legal system. Otherwise, you're faced with what's called a Talata claim. It's not something I like to get involved with because they're very complicated, and it's through the civil courts as opposed to the family courts. But where this fits in as well is, if you've been in a relationship and you're cohabitating for more than 3 years, they're going to try and give them people the same rights as if you're married. So it basically pushes you through the family court. And that, again, brings it into the modern day world. There's a lot of people who just have partners where they live together. The 3 years, incidentally, that's going to be taken out of the mix if they've got children together. But there's a lot of people who aren't married who live together as well, and that's ultimately going to have an impact as well.
So I don't know where we start with this. If a business, let's go for business owner rather than staff, let's stick with business owner, is going for a really rocky period, either one partner's going in one direction or whatever, what would be some tips and tricks, tactics for you to give that advice to that person, male or female, doesn't matter, but if they're going for this rocky period, it looks like it's coming to an end, what would be your first initial thoughts?
Yeah, without stereotyping guys and girls, but if we think about it, girls are more open to talk to their friends. That could be detrimental, certainly in this process as well, because what they believe is going to happen, and what the courts, if it does go down the court route, the way that works is completely different. And a guy, he'll tend to either bury himself in work, or go down the route of not saying anything and become quite detached from everything. I believe the first thing to do is open up to somebody that you can trust, whether that's a family member or not. And the best advice I can give is get a support system in place as soon as possible. So get somebody like myself who's a coach, and kind of go, right, okay, this is happening, this is where I'm at. Although we can't give legal advice, we can explain the process. We can give some clarity on something which, ultimately people don't go through every day, so it's not really spoken about. So get that support system in place. Decide whether, it's amicable, whether we can go through mediation, or whether, in my case, mediation would never work because I was in a very controlling relationship. So we had to go down the route of solicitors. Whether you want to represent yourself and save money, which, if you can, honestly, it's the best advice, especially if there's kids involved, because otherwise you're just spending money. You're spending money on, which could be the kids' inheritance. It could be a better life for both you and your ex-partner. There's a few different ways to look at it, but ultimately, I think get that support system in place very early on, as quickly as possible, because when that's in place and you've got people who are, even like you said, like yourself, you know all about accountability groups and things like that, keep your mental health, up, keep your fitness up, all the standard stuff that you do for mental health, but then obviously have other people in place where, tomorrow night I'm helping a guy out with some forms that he's representing himself through the divorce because there's not that much money and he wants to keep the house. So I'm helping him fill the forms in. Ultimately, he has to do them, but I can guide him.
And what's the approximate time? It's done, it's finished,
Yeah.
they're out, you're living at the mum's.
Yeah. Yeah. On the sofa.
Yeah. What would you say an average, and I know a piece of string is very long, but what's the next steps? Find a support network, brilliant, a bit of advice.
Yeah.
Then what we're doing, again, I think you explained about if it can be amicable and maybe sit in a room with said person, or if it's not amicable, but what are the other steps and to scare the life out of people, how long could this take?
And you know what? I'm so pleased that you've asked that, because if we were stuck on the side of that hill at Via Ferrata and you said to me that I would still be going through the family court system nearly 6 years after, I would have gone, no way. It can't happen. I mean, I've got no children. There was 2 properties. It was a very, very easy division, yet obviously mine was extremely difficult. I think, going back to what you said, it's very easy now as well to press that button on divorce. So with the no-fault divorce, there doesn't even have to be a reason to get divorced. You can just go, do you know what, I'm tapping out. Things have never been easier. It's strange. And, the other person doesn't have a say in it anymore. It's not like they need to have cheated or they need to have had bad behaviour or anything like that. Once you click that button, you have what's called a 20-week cooling off period, where in that 20 weeks you can kind of retract. You're like, oh no, I've made a mistake. Not sure if that would ever happen, but
Is it so you go on a website and you can literally click the button and hit the button?
Literally, you go on the .gov,
getting your car tax. It's just get your divorce.
you go on the .gov website.
Yeah,
you pay the fee, which is about £600. You click the button and away you go.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Simple as that. So in the first 20 weeks, really what you're trying to do in them 20 weeks is just kind of get your ducks in a row. Do you know what I mean? Find out your CETVs.
What's a CET?
So that's like a pension sharing. So what your pension's worth. If you've got your own flooring business, is that tied in? Are you both directors if it's a limited company? Are you in a partnership? Because ultimately the business is going to be a matrimonial asset as well. Yeah. So all these things are kind of in place. I would say if it's amicable, you're probably looking at a couple of years.
Right, okay.
Yeah, by the time you go through the whole processes. I have had one of my friends where it was so amicable that he literally got the consent order, which is where even if you decide yourself, a consent order needs to be signed by the courts. He got his through, I think it's the quickest I've ever seen, and that was 8 months.
Right, okay. And that's done, dusted out.
Yeah, and I think they'd already made up their minds between them. It wasn't working for either of them. They'd worked out how to divide it before they even clicked the button. So I think that's the quickest I've ever seen.
So either way, you're looking... it's speedy. You're looking pretty much 12-month period of back when playing tennis of something, waiting for this, waiting for that, waiting for the other. So it's it's no joke. No, it's no. It is no joke, and I think obviously if this new law gets passed and it's it's just living in partners or people who have children together, I think that's just going. It's what's needed, in all honesty, from my side, because like I said before, the Talata claims are even worse. It's not something that I would get involved with. That needs specialist advice because that goes for the civil court. But you can see the impact on a business this area would have. Yeah, I mean, you could have a high performing member of staff. You could have the directors. You're looking at 12 months. Best case 8 months, 8 to 12 months of going through, but then being completely focused on that thing. I think. Absolutely. I don't think we've tipped on, but I think it'd be useful, and to do with because I once had, I hadn't heard about it apart from when we've been friends, and abusive relationships, male or female,
Yeah.
that, let's put divorce to one side,
Yes.
and you're in where do you get help for that? Like, apart from friends, or what do you, if you're trapped, you don't want to speak to anyone, where would you go? What would you, what would you, like, what happens there? Because again, that's a bit of a, is it taboo? I don't know. It's
So certainly from, I can give you a little bit of my experience and what happened to me. So with me being autistic, I didn't have to visit the mental health team, but I basically had a number that I could call that if my mental health deteriorated, I had some support there.
do they come to you?
Um,
Or just,
yeah, so I reached out to those people, and my ex had discharged us from the system to prevent us getting support. So that's part and parcel of the control. So they basically interviewed us and said, right, we can't work with you. And they put us in contact with a domestic abuse organisation. And in our area, it's Harbour Support Services. What I do know is if you do want to contact a domestic abuse organisation, the local or the county kind of police websites have them all listed. So in different areas, there's a charity or a CIC type company like Harbour Support Services, but in different areas of the country, and you can basically, I don't want to use the word enroll, but you can basically self-refer.
Yeah.
You can self-refer. They'll certainly listen with compassion. And they'll decide from there. They do have court liaison officers. That's not quite the same as kind of what I do. And I think if anybody's in some form of domestic abuse or coercive control in relationship, then I think from my point of view, you need somebody specialist to kind of give you some clarity on that. And that's, that's what I kind of specialize in now as well. So I help out with the first male refuge in the Northeast as well, fundraising for that as well. Because the woman behind that actually helped me parents. Part of the control for myself was my parents were involved as well.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's really sad about it is the NHS. So I won't keep going on about the podcast, but I've obviously had some health issues this year.
Yeah.
And at some point, we've had some low points, like because my dad died when I was 3 from a heart condition. So I had in the back of my mind from a child, I'm going to get to 42. My dad got to 42. I'm 43 this year. So it was on my mind. It's the same. They couldn't find the problem. And you tell this to your GP and they'll say, oh, we refer you to this NHS organisation or outsource. They then ring you, you fill out a form, and they'll say, oh, we'll be contacting 2 or 3 weeks. Which is no fucking use when you are in a hole going, now, today, 3 o'clock, I'm not in a great place.
Mm-hmm.
Which was really frustrating because it's like, oh, well, we can help you, but you've got to jump through all these hoops and we'll let you know in a couple of weeks. It's like, well, I'm not, I've got no patience to start with, but to start, when it's something like a relationship abuse or stress or whatever, you kind of want to help now.
Yes.
And then really interestingly, the best advice I've had is from the British Heart Foundation, where you can phone a number and you speak to a cardiac nurse. She picks the phone up when you ring it and say, I need to speak to someone now. And they say, right, how long have you, what's your name? My name's Janice, oh, hello, Janice. And that was mad discovery for me. I've never had any sort of, let's say, intervention of needing it urgently, which some people might do in a relationship or mental health and all that type of stuff. But it was mad that my GP saying, oh, it'll take 2 to 3 weeks to speak to someone. And then you ring the British Heart Foundation, which is a charity.
Yes.
And you can speak to someone. There's no hold. Literally, hello? It's like, hello? And that was mad. That was absolutely mad for me where, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I think getting that support network around you.
That's what it's about.
It's like, well, who can I speak to? Who will speak to me now? And keep asking and keep asking and keep probing and keep jabbing, and not probably getting frustrated. If you go into, another thing which might fall into the same bracket is when I went to my GP, straight away I wanted to put us on antidepressants.
Yeah.
Well, here's the solution. I'll put you on antidepressants because you can go to your GP and say, I feel rubbish, I feel lethargic. it could be because of a abusive relationship or whatever, or here's some antidepressants.
Yeah.
Well, fucking, I mean, I'm not medically trained, so
No.
yes, I'm sure they will help some people, but for me, there's much more different ways of dealing with that adversity than following the process. Yeah,
definitely.
you know, and I think that's so I think that's probably the biggest message for me where I've discovered. I mean, it's quite funny because in my medicine cabinet at home when I go in every day, the antidepressants that they gave us are still there in a sealed box, and I keep looking at them going, the bastards. What? Like I've had them back in, I think it was 2011 for stress. I think and stress and anxiety for, I think it was for 3 weeks, and I was a complete mong. And I just didn't. And then I discovered exercise and discovered doing different things. But I think it's interesting that the message I'm getting across to people is if they're feeling really shit and low, going to your GP is definitely recommended, but don't. The process to me, rather than finding a coach, friends, some friends,
Yeah.
opinions, people that have done it before.
Yes.
That's normally the best way to learn from people, you know, as in coaches, mentors, things that have been in the hole. You know, it'd be like a relationship and divorce coach that hasn't been through it. It's a bit, well, that doesn't quite wrong. Doesn't kind of work in one way. Don't say it wouldn't work fully, but I think you need to have that experience. So
definitely, and I think ultimately, like you say, putting that support system in place and hiring a coach. I mean, we've both hired coaches in the past for various reasons, and you know, they've always said that's the fast track way of getting anything done, 100%. Whereas in the industry that I'm kind of in, it's even more beneficial because ultimately, even if you have a solicitor in place, a divorce coach is going to save you money. Ultimately, because the solicitor has
£100 an hour.
and not only that, he's not there to deal with it, or he or she. They aren't there to deal with the emotional side.
No, which they're going to get.
Which they're going to get, and ultimately, even you know, the bar for having adjustments on the financial side for domestic abuse is so high. I was told that literally they need to have physically chopped your arm off, for example. It needs to be that severe. They need to prevent you from earning the way that they look at it. And it's probably a conversation that is too long for the podcast, but ultimately all the solicitor is there for is they've got a duty of care to get you through that system as efficiently as possible. They don't deal with the emotional side. Every time you send them an email, it's costing you money. And like you said, that, you know, the average price around here is about £250 to £300 an hour. If you're in an abusive situation, and I signposted you to one of the best in the country, for example, then you are looking £400 to £600 an hour. So getting a divorce coach involved where you can kind of go, right, they can deal with all the emotional side. We can help you get all the paperwork together and everything prior to your solicitor. Ultimately, we're saving a whole load of money, and it's something I wish I had.
Yeah.
I honestly do. I had a lot of people around me supporting us, but none of them really understood it in the way that I've done the courses, and I think that's so beneficial for people.
So what's the basic storyline from start to finish? Obviously, I'm assuming getting the final sign off and someone saying thanks very much. You know, I hope to not see you again, Paul. With respect.
Yeah, definitely.
That's one disadvantage. You repeat customs if it's the people won't want to get you back on as a coach. If they do, so be it. But what other bits can you give us to help anyone that might be going through a bit of a patch, or that's been through a patch, or what else can we give the listeners for the show for your services and just tips and tricks? That's what we love, the tactics.
Yeah, I think communication is key with everything, isn't it? And it's something that we maybe don't practice enough. We all about being present. We in a time where technology is taking over. I heard on I listen to your podcast as well, and how you don't take your phone on holiday and stuff.
No.
I must admit I do, but I do so much running on holiday that I kind of use it to track.
Should try it, Paul.
I should try. But I think, where we're not present and we're not communicating and stuff like that, then ultimately that's kind of where the detachment comes. I think communication's key with everything. And we can all fall short, can't we? We're all human, but ultimately, if we want to be in a relationship, then we need to do that. And them relationships, I know we've spoke about intimate relationships, but these relationships and the communication also works within the workplace, doesn't it? If you think about it, talking to your boss, look, I've got this going on. Oh, I don't understand that. Don't bury your head in the sand. We've been there, and it doesn't end well.
No.
It doesn't end well. It makes the situation 10 times worse.
I think the initial conversation 10 times worse than the thought with most
It
things.
is. Yeah, definitely.
Just asking for that help, and that's the thing that like what the coach you've used for different things. He always used to say is like, no one wants a coach. Like no one wants a relationship coach. No one wants a performance coach. Everyone wants to just figure it out themselves. It's cheaper. It'd be easier if you can do it yourself, but it's the actual opposite. I think it's like understanding, well, you kind of, for the right coach, as long as you pay to play, it gets you there 10 times quicker.
Yes.
And I think as soon as people have got over that ego side of like, well, I don't want one. Well, and it was like what we were saying before the podcast started, where I've always been scared of needles and not want to get my bloods done. And now I go for acupuncture, and I'm like, if you'd asked me that 6 months ago, would you go for acupuncture?
Yeah.
Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything worse. Sitting on the bed, someone stabbing us with needles. I literally would rather do anything but that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, I'm just going to trust alternative. It might work, it might not, it might be a load of rubbish. But I definitely feel different to having it or not having it. So something's happening.
Yes.
It might have been a load of horseshit. I don't know. But up from 0 to 42-year-old, the answer would be absolutely not. Now I've got to the point where I'm like, I've got to take my own advice. And just another coach said to me, and I wasn't even coaching with it, but he actually rang me and said, look, you need to go to see an acupuncturist and ask them to do this. I've done it. I've got over this. And he said it fast-tracked him forward. And he was, he wasn't even my coach. And he just rang me up and said, how are you doing? Again, support network. So I think people just need to get over themselves. And if it's going in the wrong direction, try and have a sensible conversation with your partner. If that's not possible, go outside of that loop.
Yes.
And then just have some honest conversations. And I think if it's done, it's done. Like, I mean, that's I'm not in experience from that. I've not been divorced, and I'm touching every bit of wood that that we wouldn't. But I think I'm trying to think when it was. It might have been about 2018, Paul. I never said this in the podcast. Me and Sarah probably did have about a 3-month rocky period.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bloody pleasant.
No.
And I think we did actually go. Sarah kill me for saying this, but I suppose it doesn't matter. I'm sure we did go to a relation. No, we didn't. Well, I'm not sure. We went to a relationship coach for probably 3 sessions.
Yeah.
And that's sort of that. And well, I'm still married, so very happily married, and still,
Yeah, and you've learned awful lot from that, and obviously your continuous improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't want to feel like that. So yeah, 3 sessions did solve it. As far as I can say, I hope. Anyway, hopefully she doesn't. She'll be pushing that button tomorrow, Paul.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other bits I haven't covered, Paul? Because it's a subject I don't know enough about. I've not been through it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's so much more out there, but the absenteeism from there as well, because it's such a stressful time. The average person loses around 21 days in the first year. Now you add that onto the already kind of staff holidays, or whether it could be important meetings if it is the company owner even. Do you know what I mean? Like, the 21 days is it's significant, and I think ultimately you need to have some form of SOP in place, or even just to have a think. If you're a company owner, even if you kind of you've only got 1 or 2 staff, you need to maybe have a think about, right, okay, if this arises, how's the company going to cope with it? Are we booked up for the next month on installs? Are we, have we got these important deadlines that we need to meet? What we're going to do? Have we got room to put flexible working in place? I was listening to the one that he did on business boundaries, and that's quite that's a very interesting way. And I think that flexible approach needs to be incorporated, right? Okay, if this person needs time off, because ultimately if a court date comes up or a mediation date comes up, yes, you can delay them. It's very hard, and it's obviously easier not to. And if you do delay them, you could be waiting another 6 months for another court hearing, whereas a mediation, it could be another month or whatever. So all you're doing is prolonging a process which is ultimately going through, and it's costing the company money. The other thing it is as well is, I rejigged the numbers a little bit because I would appreciate that, yes, you have got massive flooring companies with a lot of staff, but the figures were based like on people who had like 100 staff, so I kind of rounded it down. If you had from 1 to 10 staff or 1 to 10 employees, including the business owners, the cost of somebody going through a relationship breakdown or the cost of the absentees or whatever per person is around £20,000. So ultimately, the thing is, the time that they're going to need support, if you want loyal people, which are hard to come by these days, if you want loyal people, then obviously coming from a place of compassion, which is what I've already said, supporting them. And even if you say to them, look, I don't know what you're going through, let me help you. I heard Tom's podcast with Paul on, maybe we give him a call, or do you know what I mean? And kind of run through some things. If you can just even signpost them a little bit to get that little bit of support, I think ultimately they'll work better for you. They'll make you more money in it, and it'll cost you less because of staff turnover.
I think that's deal with the problem before it's even occurred. So This is what happens if this happens.
Yes.
It's brilliant advice. Again, I've had multiple staff. We've got 11 staff here, I think. We haven't had someone, not knowingly, that's had significant time off, but that's not to say that it's not going to happen in the future. But it's a great bit of advice. Paul, where can people find you? Where you're lurking on socials? What websites? Someone's listening to this podcast and it's hit a nerve. Where is it?
Yeah, it's paulnaisbittcoaching.com. That's got links to my LinkedIn and my Instagram. You'll probably have to print it because my name isn't the easiest to say.
We'll make sure it's in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, simply go to paulnaisbittcoaching.com, and I'd love to help out anybody who's going through any problems.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing this on, Paul. It's been really valuable and something a bit different for this today's podcast. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
The sponsor for this show is us. Is Cockrell & Co. What do Cockrell & Co. do? Well, we help flooring shops, retailers, contractors, wholesalers, and anyone connected to the flooring industry spend more time doing productive things, putting systems and processes in place, making more bottom line profit, and running their business much more efficiently than they ever thought was possible. We run training courses, we have a community of nearly 100 people, and this podcast here. So if you want to know more about what we do, the best place to find us is either on socials, Cockrell & Co, or the website, which is cockrellandco.co.uk. We'd love to speak to you about how your business is going, what your plans are, and how you would love to grow and mature that over time. There is no cost to have a conversation with us on Zoom or on the telephone. We now have a fantastic senior leadership team who can help you with 99.9% problems, and if we can't help you, we will find someone that can. So no matter what flooring business you've got, what help you would need, you just need to ask. That is all. So without the corporate waffle, without the bloke in the shiny suit, but someone that wants to make more money and spend time doing things that you love, we would love to hear from you. Again, visit cockrellandco.co.uk and send us a message, or find us on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook and Instagram.